The Florida Gators are in prime position to go back to back after Alex Condon announced his return to Gainesville.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all of my written work with New York Giants on SI. And we are talking about the tremendous news for the Florida Gators that came out yesterday, midday. I forget if it was, early morning or late morning, early afternoon. But Alex Condon announced his intent to return to Florida this year. And this was the thing that go back to during the season, about 3/4 of the way through the regular season, I feel like we really started to hear the hype around Alex Condon as an NBA draft prospect. Like it was no longer just, oh yeah, he's got a high ceiling. It was, hey, NBA teams are going to really like his game. And there's very good reason to like a lot of his game. He's got enough of a jumper that's improved that has improved over time, enough to justify thinking, hey, that jumper should continue improving. He's got, he's maybe the best passing big man. He's the best passing big man in the country this past year. And a lot of the offense doesn't work if Alex Condon isn't as good a passer as he is. It's as simple as that. Right? A lot of this offense doesn't work if Alex Condon isn't able to thread the needle the way that he could thread the needle. And there were certain points in this past season where he was just, I don't know how to describe it, but he was just ripping it. Like, I don't know what got into him for a little bit, but he was passing with insane levels of confidence. And it was working because he's good enough to do that as a passer. Like, it was like cross court, one hand just heaving it. Like, it was crazy stuff to see. And Alex Condon, stuff like that's gonna help your stock, right? Tremendous offensive rebounder. Stuff like that helps you. And Alex Condon was going out there and doing it on a nightly basis, crashing the boards, making great passes. He had boneheaded decisions, boneheaded mistakes. And we saw it happen a lot, even during the national championship. We saw him have 3 travels. Stuff like that is boneheaded. But I do think that when he declared for the NBA draft, it was, again, we talked about this on my show a lot, where when he declared for the NBA draft, we expected him to declare for the NBA draft. We also expected him to come back because while he has all these great traits and all these great tools at his disposal, he still is he's still young and inexperienced as a ball player, right? He used to play Aussie rules football more, so he's still learning as a basketball player. So he was just inexperienced there, but he's also just very inconsistent, right? He would have games where he would crash the offensive glass, not the defensive. And opposing teams, even though they'd be way smaller than Florida. Like, again, that Missouri game in the SEC tournament is one that I keep revisiting. And I think, all right, well, stuff like that was scary because you severely outsized Missouri, but they were cooking on the offensive glass because you weren't trying hard enough on the defensive glass. And by you, I don't mean Condon, I mean the Florida Gators. And obviously him being one of the big men, he takes more flack there than others, but everybody deserves a lot of flack for that one. And so there were signs that he could be a great NBA player. I still believe he can be a great NBA player, but there were also signs that, hey, he needs more time to just develop. And the NBA isn't always forgiving or generous with that time to develop. And so I do think that for a lot of guys, it's like, hey, I've said lottery. I've said if you're not a lottery pick, you should strongly consider coming back to college. That's not a Florida thing. That's an anybody thing. Because I think if you're a lottery pick, teams probably feel invested enough in you to justify any struggles you may have. But if you're a later first round pick or if you're a second round pick, I think a lot of teams don't give a damn. They're like, all right, I'll go get a veteran that can do these same things and give me that veteran leadership or that experience. And I think that they'll value that. But Alex Condon decided yesterday or announced yesterday to come back. The deadline to withdraw from the NBA draft is today. So there was all that about, is he going to come back? We thought he was going to make the announcement this past weekend, but he ended up having some NBA workouts. And so he had to go through those workouts, get a true gauge of where he's going to get drafted, and then make that decision. And we talked about this with a couple of the insiders yesterday, which if you want to join the Locked On Gators Insider Program, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators, or the link is in the description below. But we were talking about it a little bit yesterday where I think that, and I don't know how these discussions work or how these negotiations work or any of that, but in my mind, the way to go about it, or the best way to go about it, would probably be player has a discussion about NIL with the school, or schools if they're the kind of player it's like, hey, I'm declaring for the draft, but also entering the portal in case I don't stick in the draft. I'm also not going to stick here, similar to Boogie Fland. And so I think that the way that those negotiations should work is, let's use Alex Condon, for example. Florida goes, hey, Alex, we're going to give you XYZ amount of money. You know, you're going to come back and be the starter. You're going to be a very big part of the offense. Even if you're not a focal point of the scoring offense, you're still going to be a very big part of the offense. That's what we can promise you. And I think that teams should, and again, the way that I think it should work is that schools and teams should give those offers, say, this is our NIL, this is how we plan on using you, this is what the offense is going to look like, this is how you fit into it, all that. And again, in this case for Condon, it was just Florida, but Florida should give him that. And then he can go through his NBA draft process and he could say, all right, well, they're offering me XYZ. If I get drafted 18th, that's the same amount of money I'm going to make. So if I'm told I'm going to get drafted anywhere past 18, then I'm not coming back, or then I'm coming back to school and I'm not sticking in the draft. And we were told that the number was 20 here. That it was basically, hey, if you're not going in the top 20, come on back. And the expectation wasn't that he would go in the top 20. So he's back. But I do think that that's the way it should go. I don't know if that's how it actually works out, but to me, that's the way that I think it should go. That way, the team knows how much money to keep to the side, basically an escrow for if you are coming back. You know what you have waiting for you if you come back, and you know kind of the bar to set of, well, if I don't get picked in by this spot, then I'm coming back. And I think that should be the way to go about it. The Florida Gators have done a fantastic job of repositioning themselves to go back to back. We'll talk about the roster and that scholarship remaining. It's weird. We'll talk about it when we get back with Locked On Gators. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts. I mean, have you watched Knicks Pacers? Talk about momentum shifts, right? And can't miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot, game-tying shot, or a breakout player. There has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have way more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And this Florida Gators roster has now gone from one that was going to undergo just insane levels of roster turnover, right? In terms of how experienced this team is. And that's also a thing where when you have a team that was experienced as Florida last year, like Florida on average, or their average experience on that roster was 2.44 years, okay? Average nationally is 1.73. So on average, teams have guys with less than 2 years of D1 experience. Florida's average was almost 2.5. That's a big gap. That's a very experienced team. Okay? And we knew going into this season, or going into the offseason, really, you're going to lose Walter Clayton Jr., you're going to lose Elijah Martin, you're going to lose Will Richard, you're going to see Alex Condon declare for the draft. We here thought you'd see Thomas Houck declare for the draft. He did not. We did not think you'd see Ruben Chinyelu declare for the draft. He did, and he withdrew. A lot of us were expecting Denzel Aberdeen back for another year, but he transferred to Kentucky instead. That's a lot of roster turnover there, right? Sam Alexis, who was playing pretty decent minutes before injuries and roster reshuffling or rotation reshuffling, he transferred out. He's at Indiana now. This is a team that underwent a lot of roster turnover and still has, right? Like, we expected it to go under a lot, but it has gone under a lot. But I don't think I've ever seen a team go under as much roster turnover as we've seen. And I still feel as confident as I do about them. And again, if you're new here, maybe you just think I'm being a homer, but I think a lot of people, especially that have been here for basketball coverage, know I'm pretty damn critical of this team. I'm pretty damn critical of all my teams. I try to be as critical as possible because I think that helps eliminate bias. If I am extremely critical of my teams, then I am less likely to be biased because I'm trying to be harsh on them. They're my teams. I have higher expectations for my teams. I expect you to be great. And we now have the Florida Gators returning the best front court in basketball because they were the best front court in basketball last year. I don't think anybody would debate that with you. And if they do, they're wrong. No other way to put it. Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu, both coming back. Thomas Houck coming back again. This time he's going to be a starter. He's reportedly going to be starting at the 3. Thomas Houck coming back there at the 3. Micah Hanlockton is coming back at the 5 as well, coming off the bench there. And this is a roster with just stacked talent throughout now, right? They've done everything they can to bring back this front court. Again, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu, Micah Hanlockton, Thomas Houck, all back, all significant contributors last year, all key parts of winning the national championship. They brought back the whole front court. Then you bring in the best transfer guard class in the country in Xavier Lee, A.J. Brown, and Boogie Fland. You don't get better than that in the transfer portal. You don't get better than bringing all those 3. And I know that there are quite a few Florida Gators fans that I think have kind of started to, I don't want to say sour on A.J. Brown because I don't think that's true at all, but they have started to kind of go, all right, well, he's not that great in addition. And I think that's bull, all right? I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I don't think that's the expectation. Even when he committed, I was excited for the commitment. I said, hey, he's either going to be a starter or he's going to be coming off the bench, but I don't view him as like, oh yeah, bona fide starter, superstar player. No, he's just a tremendous three-point shooter. That's his role. He's supposed to be spacing. That's his role. Spacing, and if you're open, shoot the 3 and make the 3. That's his job. So this has gone from a roster undergoing tremendous levels of roster turnover to a roster that now, I'll tell you this. I placed my bet on April 8th for Florida to win the national championship again. I placed it for them to win the national championship before last season. Placed it in April this time. And yesterday, when Alex Condon announced his return, I texted my degenerate friends and I was like, hey, put Florida to win the national championship again because back-to-backs no longer a possibility. It's the expectation. That's where before, with all the roster turnover and when everything was up in the air, we were like, all right, things can change and who knows who's going to come in the portal, how these guys are going to fit. Now we're looking at it and I look at this team and I say, all right, national championship back-to-back is no longer the goal. It's the expectation. And I think that matters, right? Ben Chase, Florida's director of NIL, he was on this show when he got hired by Florida and he came out here and he said, hey, look, this is the University of Florida. Greatness is not the goal, it's the expectation. And the Florida Gators basketball team has that goal now, or has that expectation now of going back to back once again. And again, that's to say that it's no longer just, oh, we're putting a lot of pressure, we're putting this. That's what they're supposed to do. And now that they've got the best transfer guard class in the country, now that they've got the best front court in the country back, and by the way, I'm not saying that they have the best guards in the country. I don't know that right now. That's a lot about how players are going to mesh with one another. So I'm not going to say that they have the best guards in the country. But I am saying that they have the best transfer guard class in the country. And I think that that's fair. I don't think that's outrageous to say that with anybody or compared to any other guard class. I don't think so. So that's my take on it. But Florida, they're in an interesting spot because you're allowed to have 15 scholarship players now because of NCAA rule changes with revenue sharing coming in and all that. But Florida has said that they're going to stick to 13 scholarships, that they think that's the best way they can do it to make sure that revenue sharing and allow them to basically maximize paying those players, which is it's fair, I think. I think it's a great usage of roster management there. And with Alex Condon coming back, that leaves them with, again, legally 3 scholarships remaining, but Florida standards 1 scholarship remaining because they've said, again, they're going to have those 2 last spots for walk-ons there. So Florida has 1 scholarship spot remaining, right? And there's a name that a lot of people talk about as a name, a guy that we've talked about on this show before, in Ben Henshaw, right? Ben Henshaw, Australian wing, used to be teammates with Alex Condon over in Australia, and he's declared for the NBA draft. And if he doesn't like his stock, then he's going to try the college route. And there's a couple things there. Well, I will say Florida has been in contact with Ben Henshaw. To my knowledge, they're still speaking with Ben Henshaw, but I'm not getting my hopes up, and I don't think it's very likely to happen. Okay, a few reasons there. First off, there's academic things going on where Florida would have to get him cleared. That's often a thing with international players. So that's not, a Ben Henshaw specific thing. It's something that you have to deal with international players very frequently. And so there's that with Ben Henshaw. And that may be an issue. Okay. I don't think that that's going to be the main thing to deter them from getting him, right? I think what's more likely is that would require either him to accept a bit of like a bench warmer role or someone else that had expectations for a larger role to accept the bench warmer role, because Florida right now has a rotation set up of, I'll say 9 players that they're anticipating to play considerable minutes throughout the entirety of the season. I don't just mean during that non-conference and then you shrink down during conference. I mean, 9 players that they'll probably play considerable minutes again during the regular season, during conference play, during all that. And I think that Ben would not want to take less than that. And I think a lot of players that have already set that expectation wouldn't want to take less than that. And I don't think Todd Golden wants to expand the rotation because that's not been what he does. You look at last year, and it was Walter Clayton Jr., it was Elijah Martin, it was Will Richard, it was Thomas Houck, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinilu. For a good bit, it was Sam Alexis, Denzel Aberdeen, Irvin Clavar. Then Micah Hanlockton's like, hey, I'll burn my red shirt to come back. And what happens? Sam Alexis falls out. We get into the late NCAA tournament, late March Madness. Irvin Clavar falls out of the rotation. Florida, they haven't gone very deep with a rotation, and it's not because they haven't been able to. Todd Golden, I mean, he's had time at this point, right? He's chosen to not have the rotation there. He's chosen to not have that roster that way. And I think by saying, hey, we're going to have 13 scholarship players, I feel like you're further committing to that, right? But another part of that is that other schools are probably going to be willing to bid more for Ben Henshaw. And I understand the argument of, well, you can take less money to come compete for a national championship at Florida. And while that's absolutely true, I think it's a tough sell to go, hey, you can take less money and less minutes to come play for a national championship. Because you're taking less money to compete for a national championship, sure. You're taking less minutes to compete for a national championship, sure. But taking less money and less minutes to compete for a national championship, that doesn't sound that enticing. It doesn't. I'm going to be honest with it. Like, yes, winning a national championship sounds fantastic, but one, he's a Euro or not a Euro player, an international player. And so I don't think winning a college national championship matters as much to the international players. But also, I don't think there's a lot of people with NBA aspirations that are going to go, yeah, as long as I win a college national championship, I'm fine not playing and not getting paid. Because he's thinking as a pro already. He's like, yeah, I'm ready for the NBA. He's not going to want to take that. I'm like trying to put myself in his shoes. I don't think he'd want to take that. Florida does still have that one spot, though. And they kind of hinted at what they might do. We'll talk about that final spot on the Florida Gators basketball roster when we get back with Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And to wrap up today's show, we are talking about that final scholarship spot for the Florida Gators. Again, you are allowed to have 15 total. Florida has said they're going to have 13 total because they think that that's the best way to invest their NIL. It's a great way, or their rev share, however you want to classify their financial funds. That's what they're talking about. And a couple of notes here. One, they are in no rush to fill that spot. Okay? They are in no rush to fill that final spot just for the sake of saying, hey, we've got our 13th guy. Okay? Two, I think that based on how Todd Golden has spoken about it, we can kind of, I guess, estimate, right? Or guess why they're in no rush, right? Because Todd Golden has kind of hinted at the idea of, hey, if we go out there and we go get, a European baller, that's fine with me. If we get a developmental piece, that's fine with me. And so the way that I look at it is that Todd Golden is probably looking at this Florida Gators roster right now and saying, hey, we're not going to have Alex Condon for another year. Like, we're not getting him back for 2026. That's incredibly unlikely considering he already declared and was very close with his declaration sticking. Made it all the way down. And I don't mean very close than he was truly on the fence or whatever, but I'm saying that in the sense of he waited till the last day to really announce it. And so I think that I take that as, okay, that's relevant information because a lot of guys withdrew earlier. So that's why I say, all right, well, probably not going to have Condon back again. Probably not going to have Xavion Lee back again. Probably not going to have Boogie Fland back again because Boogie Fland declared again and ended up coming to Florida. Ruben Chinyelu up in the air. I do think he's someone that could declare again and come back again unless he, again, takes the significant steps needed to play in the NBA, contribute offensively. Micah Hanlogton probably going to be gone. Urban Clavar could be gone. We'll see how that works for him. But you've got and Thomas Houck probably going to be gone. You've got a lot of guys that are probably going to be gone, right? And so I think that when Todd Golden goes, yeah, if it's a European player, like I'd love that. A developmental piece, I'd love that. I look at it as he's basically using this final spot, this final scholarship spot as let's get someone that can come in and just learn our system and master that for a year. And that's his only responsibility is learn the system so that next year when we have that playing time available, he can come in and take that playing time. That's how I look at it, at least. And look, if it's a Euro player, like I think a lot of players coming from Euro or just, I'll say internationally in general. Todd said Euro. I will say internationally in general. I think a lot of those players could use time to adapt, not just to Florida's system, not just to Florida's schedule in terms of, because they're going to have different schedules from when pros practice to when Florida practices and plays and all that. But to just adjust to American basketball. I know basketball is basketball, but there are different play styles and tendencies and systems throughout, and teams play differently. Like, look at Urban Clavar. So many people saw Urban Clavar come in, and there was a ton of hype around him, deservedly so. He's very enticing as an international player when he was coming over to Florida, but didn't really work out last year. And it's not because he's a bad basketball player. It's because things are different here. They are. Things are just different here. He's still a pretty good shooter. I think a lot of us thought he'd be better than 34%. Probably thought, I feel like, 36, 37% is kind of where we thought he'd be. So could improve there. Turn the ball over more than we anticipated. Was less of a legitimate facilitator there. Was less of a defensive presence there. I think a lot of it comes down to just learning how to play American basketball, because there are different levels to it. No matter where you go, I think there's different levels to it. It's not strictly the level of competition or the talent that you're facing. It's not just that. Like, I do think that, yeah, that's part of it, but it's not just that. A lot of it does come down to just style of play. And so I think that bringing in a European player could help. And a lot of European players can shoot. That's the thing over there. A lot of guys are combo guards that can shoot. That's the thing over there. Like, if Florida goes and gets and I'm not saying just international. Like, if you go and you get someone at a high school or something, I don't care, transfer portal, whatever it is, you go get someone that you can look at and say, hey, he's going to be a multi-year player, not going to contribute this year, but next year, sure. If you go get, I think one thing you can look for is a guard or like anybody from the 1 through 3 that can shoot already. And then you just teach them how to facilitate, how to play defense, and how to just run this offense, and how to play defense in this system. I think you can find that. That's a great addition. And that sounds like kind of what Todd Golden wants in terms of bringing in the Euro player. I think that fits the system, right? That fits what a European baller would need to learn. You can look for a stretch big that you can add weight, improve his rebounding, improve his paint presence. Because, again, your front court's going to probably undergo a lot of turnover next year as well. Like, you brought them all back this year. The odds of you bringing them all back again, very, very, very slim. And so maybe you go for a stretch big that you can add weight to and improve his rebounding, improve his paint protection, or his paint presence in general. And you go, all right, that's the guy that we're going to look to. Maybe you bring in a great slashing guard, a great facilitator, and you go, hey, you're going to spend this year working on your jump shot. That's your biggest priority to improve. Learn the system, improve your jump shot, and we're cooking with gas. Maybe it's that. But I think that's how Florida is looking at it, is let's get a guy that can sit here, no pressure to play, just learn the system, learn how we play, and then come in and contribute there. And I think that's maybe the best way to go about it. And so if that's a Euro player, it's a Euro player. If it's not, it's not. But I don't think it'll be Ben Henshaw. And if it is Ben Henshaw, I'll be very surprised. And again, this isn't anything that I've been told. It's just me trying to piece together all the logic and not really seeing why he would come here. Unless he's just, hey, I want to be comfortable and be in a place where I can win and play with my friend Alex. But even then, does that now mean someone else has to take a smaller role that they weren't anticipating? And what are the ripple effects of that? And so I think that the safest option is let's go get a developmental guy. I think you've got a championship roster. Go get a developmental guy that can sit and help you reload for the following year, which you're going to need to do. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. We will be back tomorrow, talk more Florida Gators. I don't know, football, basketball. We'll figure it out. Friday, we're going to have David Schultz of Locked On Sunbelt here. We're going to talk about the Florida Gators baseball team with the regional tournaments or the regional games they've got coming up. I almost said tournaments, which not exactly, but the regional games that they've got coming up. And so we will have that on Friday. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.